Surgery alters more than looks. My girlfriend and fiancé of 2.5 years recently got breast enhancement surgery. She'd been saying she wanted to do it ever since we first began dating, and while I expressed to her, I didn't think it was necessary. I loved the way she looked before. I always said I would support whatever decision she made because it is her body and she's the one who has to live in it. About a year ago, her mother died after a long battle with cancer, in which she actually went into remission after a double mastectomy, but then the cancer eventually came back and metastasized to her pancreas. It was a horribly painful and unpleasant experience for everyone in her family. I had met my girlfriend after her mum went into remission and after the surgery, so I wasn't there with her for the first battle, which from what I've heard was very traumatic and painful in its own way. When her mother passed, she inherited a fairly large sum of money. Nothing crazy, but enough to put a down payment on a house and finally pay for the surgery she wanted. When she told me she had made the appointment to meet with a plastic surgeon, I was supportive, but again reinforced that I loved the way she looked now, and suggested that maybe her desire to do this now was connected to her grief with her mother passing. She pretty much dismissed that notion, since she said she'd wanted to get implants since she was in high school before her mom ever had cancer or the mastectomy. Fair enough. Fast forward about 6 months ago to the surgery, and it goes off without a hitch. Because she was recovering for about a month or so, I didn't really see the finished product right away, and then when I did, they were much bigger than I had expected. She told me that there was still swelling, and that would go down, and it would look more natural. And the swelling did go down, but they've never really looked natural to me. Maybe because I was just so accustomed to the way they looked before the surgery that I am having trouble seeing them any other way. For the past few months, our sex life has been okay, but it definitely has dwindled a bit. We couldn't really have sex while she was recovering, and after she was feeling up to, we overcompensated a bit by having lots of sex. But it was still before I had an idea what they looked like. Since when we had sex, she would still be in a sports bra and/or baggy t-shirt that stayed on during, and I was very cautious not to grab at them or anything, since they were still tender for so long after. Eventually, she completely recovered, and immediately I wasn't thrilled, but I lied and said I thought they looked great. Thing is, I don't hate them or anything. The part where I started losing attraction to her has been that since she got the surgery, she gets a lot more attention from random strangers, which I've never minded. She got attention from strangers in the past too. She's a beautiful woman now and before. But since the surgery, she seems so much more receptive to the attention that it's just become a total turnoff for me. I didn't initially bring it up because I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, and even if I wasn't, it would likely be regarded that way and dismissed either way. But eventually I started to make little comments here and there when she would flirt back with the delivery guy or whatever. Nothing terrible, but like, not sure he needs a tip after all or something. She got annoyed, and eventually I did bring up my discomfort, and she did what I assumed she would, which was accusing me of being paranoid and reading into things, and saying that what I thought was happening was not. And then a couple of weeks ago, I found out that while out with her girlfriends, she was convinced to enter a wet t-shirt contest. A friend of mine happened to be at the bar they were at, and just sent me a text telling me how great my girlfriend's tits looked. He was joking and later said he framed it that way because he was uncomfortable letting me know, but knew he needed to let me know in case I wasn't aware. When I confronted her about it, she didn't understand why I was upset, which is just symptomatic of this entire personality change she seems to have undergone since the procedure. I tried to explain that if she had told me that was happening, I probably would have been fine, but the secrecy and just her general dismissiveness of my concerns and enjoying the extra attention was hurtful. She seemed to think that because she won the wet t-shirt contest, I should just be okay with it, and that I am lucky to have her. This simply isn't the person I fell in love with. I know I might be overreacting a bit, but I didn't love how the surgery turned out to begin with, and now this entire personality shift has been jarring enough to make me lose interest in being intimate with her at all. For the past 2 weeks, we've only had sex 2 times, and I've even had to reject her advances. I tried to be as nice as possible, but when I tell her I am not in the mood now, she gets very angry and frustrated and kind of throws mini tantrums, also very new. Like she thinks she's doing me a favor by even wanting to have sex with me, and I am now somehow ungrateful. I've had some of my friends, male and female alike, mimic this kind of sentiment when I've tried to discuss it, hence bringing it to Reddit. I believe the person I fell in love with is still in there somewhere, but I might just be kidding myself I am at the point where I want to suggest couples counseling, but the one time I remotely touched on the subject, she was not receptive to the idea. I don't know what else to do though. She's like a completely different person now, and I don't know that I like that person very much. Update 1. I guess what I didn't realize at the time is I had become pretty distant and terse with her, which she brought up pretty quickly, as well as the fact that I was no longer initiating sex with her and completely unreceptive to any advances she made. I told her flat out that I felt her personality had completely changed, and I was having a lot of second thoughts about the relationship. She got very upset and asked me why I'd not mentioned anything. I told her that I had tried to multiple times, and she was completely dismissive of it and accusing me of being jealous or paranoid. I asked her when have I ever been either of those things throughout our relationship, and she had to admit that I have never been a jealous or paranoid person in the past. While she admitted that, she still said that she felt her personality was still the same, and that while she may not know the reason for my perception, it was still wrong. She apologized for accusing me of being jealous, but said I'm wrong. It was weird because it felt like it suddenly got turned on me, and that it was somehow all on me. I was pretty stunned and felt like again she was being dismissive of my point of view. She said she didn't know what else to say. We agreed to put a pin in it for the night as I was kind of speechless, and talking to her felt a bit like talking to a wall anyhow. That night she tried to initiate again, and I said no and kind of snapped at her. I was quite flummoxed and said something to the effect, "Wow, you didn't hear a fucking word I said tonight, did you?" And apparently that broke her. She became so aggressive and hostile in a way I had never experienced before. She was hysterical, screaming, thrashing, throwing the pillows, and bedding around wildly. Knocked over a lamp that broke, and that didn't slow her down. Then she started pushing me, telling me to get the fuck out, and that she never wanted to see me again. At first, I was resistant, pleading with her to calm down, but she was just getting more and more aggressive, so I just grabbed my wallet and keys and ran out to me car in my socks and boxers. I could still hear her slamming doors from inside of my car outside of our house. Her house. I just drove around all night thinking. I was shaking. I was genuinely scared. I was angry. I think I was in shock. I didn't have my phone, so I couldn't call a friend or my parents to go to their house. And I didn't want to show up in the middle of the night under these circumstances anyway. I just drove around all night and didn't sleep. I waited until about 8 a.m. to go back to the house, which was around when she would leave to work. But her car was still there, so I drove and got breakfast and coffee at a drive-thru, and when I came back an hour later, she had eventually left. By this point, I am feeling pretty calm. I go inside to grab some my things, and the entire living room is just a mess. Chairs tipped over, the coffee table completely shifted out of place, a plant ripped from a pot with dirt everywhere. You can tell she tried to clean it up a little, but didn't get very far. I went to our bedroom where my phone and clothes were, and in the middle of the hallway on the way to the bedroom was a pile of all my things, including my phone, which had a broken screen. Fortunately, it was still functioning, so I called into work and spent the next 4-5 hours packing up a bunch of my stuff and loading it into my car. I also called a friend of mine and drove over to his house. He said I could crash with him for a bit while I figure out what to do next. Later that day, I sent her a text saying we should talk, and she responded there was nothing to talk about, and that she thinks it would be better for both of us if I find somewhere else to stay for the time being. I explained that I already had done so and was staying with my friend, and then she went radio silent. She didn't respond to that, or any follow-up texts I sent. About a week after all of this, she sent me a text that simply said I need to figure out a time to come and pick up the rest of my things. I asked if she would be there so we could talk, and she said she had nothing to say to me, and I should come get the rest of my things when she isn't there. So, I tried calling her, and she didn't answer. I sent her a text asking her if she was just done with us then, and she said, yes, I thought I made that clear, which maybe she did. I thought it was just an episode, and we would at least talk. Later that week, I picked up the rest of my things and sent a text saying I left my keys on the counter. She said she was getting the locks changed anyway. I've known this woman for nearly 3 years, and all of this along the way is new. She was always communicative and rarely hostile. She might pout or be passive-aggressive, but this felt like a full-blown tantrum. She was seething like a feral animal or something. She was completely unapologetic and calculatingly cold in a way she'd never been before. A few weeks later, after moving into my own apartment, I found out that she was already seeing someone new. I don't know if she started seeing him while we were together. It wouldn't shock me. At some point in the last year, she stopped respecting me. And when I think back, there were probably signs before the surgery. Maybe even wanting to get the surgery, I don't know. The whole thing feels like such a blur. I think I may have been in denial for a while. Maybe I am just telling myself that now to feel better about it. I have not heard from her in weeks, and I have not tried to contact her on my end either. I did receive a missed call from her in the middle of the night about a week ago, but there was no message or text, and I didn't bother following up to see what she wanted. I'm not ready to speak with her again. I don't know when or if I'll ever be. The last couple of weeks with her, and after the big blow-up, were the worst days of my life. I've never felt so meaningless or disregarded. And she was the person who I trusted most in the world. At one point. Anyway, sorry, this isn't a more positive update, but a few people had asked. I would have posted it sooner, but it's taken me a while to be comfortable talking about what happened. I still get upset thinking about it. I am hoping writing it out would help, but honestly, I am just sad and upset again right now. Fortunately, I have my whole life ahead of me, and I am fortunate in that I still have plenty going for me. I definitely feel more cynical now than I did before, which sucks. Hoping that passes. Final update. My ex and I are now friends. She actually finally got into therapy and has really been more like the person I thought I knew. She said she realized that she was acting out because her mom died, which I tried to discuss with her. And also, there were some issues in our relationship I was unaware of, which admittedly I did not try to discuss because I was unaware of them. She expressed to me that because of my personality, which is pretty even-keeled and placid, it can come off as indifferent or even judging. For a while, she was feeling like I didn't find her attractive anymore, which was pretty surprising to me because I always made an effort to let her know how gorgeous I thought she was. But I guess my behavior didn't always convey it, even if my words did, which is on me and something I have discussed in therapy. Being more enthusiastic or letting people know how much I appreciate them and catering it to them specifically, individually. And her therapist helped her realize a lot of what she was going through, which was nice because she essentially said that she forgave me for her reading into, essentially, way that I am and turning it into a negative, as opposed to it just being that way that I am, and in no eye a reflection of her or how I felt about her. And I believed her. And I apologized for not making her feel as beautiful as I think she is, and generally not being a more present partner. She also apologized for her behavior after her mom died. She actually admitted she was trying to make me jealous, and when it didn't work, she went temporarily insane. She said she felt like she lost me before her mom died, but because we never talked about it. After her mom died, she started acting out and feeling kind of desperate and lost control. I am so grateful for her honesty. I thought I had been going crazy. Ultimately, though, neither one of us has a desire to jump back into a relationship with the other. She had brought it up passively as something down the road and in future, but when I kind of remained silent, she asked if that was something I was hoping for, and I had to be honest. It wasn't. I love her, but the person I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore. I can't see her the same way, and I am quite frankly not in love with the person she is now. Even with everything she is saying, her previous behavior is hard to let go of, let alone ignore entirely. She agreed with me. What a relief. We love each other, but both feel like we both need time away from each other and figuring out who we are. And now we can at least be friends. I thought I lost my best friend, and I thought because of all of this that it was gone forever. But I got my best friend back. We're not best friends anymore in the way we were, but when faced with alternative, it's almost better. Because I missed her friendship more than anything, long before everything fell apart. Anyway, things are positive, but there's no hate or animosity. I feel terrible for what I put her through. But as my therapist reminds me, it wasn't intentional. At the end of the day, you are only yourself, and people have a choice to live with it or not. He's helped me a ton.